Hi, and welcome back to Brass. This is video number 3 on the Paycheck Protection Program, which was part of the CARES Act, which was passed by Congress and signed into law on March 27, 2020. This video covers the debt forgiveness component of these loans, which are granted or going to be granted or extended under Section 7A of the Small Business Administration Loan Program. Applications are going to be available to be submitted to the SBA beginning April 3, 2020. So get your information together and contact your lender, whether it be a credit union or a bank. SBA preferred lenders are going to probably be more able to help you, but you can go to any of your lenders and ask them if they're participating in the program and if they can help you. Video number 1 sets out who is eligible and how to figure out what your loan amount can be. Video number 2 goes through the deferment of payments and the general terms of the loan and how it's repaid. And this video is specifically talking about forgiveness. There was a separate section included in the law that a portion or possibly all of the loan can be forgiven based upon certain procedures and circumstances. So that's what I'm going to cover here. You must apply to have any portion of the loan forgiven. That is a separate process from applying for the loan. So you must do that with the lender, and you must bring documentation to support that application. I'm going to go through all of that information. I'm also going to go through the 2 sections for how your forgiveness amount might be reduced, either based upon number of employees and the change there, or the amount of payroll expenses. Separate, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this, separate from the law itself, the SBA has already set out some additional guidance for the lenders. It provided that the loan itself is going to have a 2-year maturity. After any loan forgiveness is calculated, if some part of the loan is not forgiven to you, then the maturity of that remaining part will be stretched out to 10 years. The initial interest rate is 0.5%. If there is anything left over that is not forgiven that you must repay, that will be at an interest rate not to exceed, not more than 4%. The loan forgiveness cannot be more than the principal amount of the loan. Other thing that the SBA has come out with in the last 1 day since this was put into effect is that for the forgiveness portion to be accepted, 75% of the amount forgiven must have been used to pay payroll costs. So as you're using the loan proceeds, keep track of what you're using it for, so that you can qualify for the maximum amount of forgiveness if that is something that you're interested in, which you don't have to run out and apply for this loan right now. They are available to be made throughout the rest of this year, definitely through June 30th, and the law is subject to extension or modification by the government if they need to expand what is covered or increase any time limits. So for purposes of loan forgiveness, I want to go through these definitions so that you understand what I'm talking about, so I don't have to say it over and over again. The covered period is 8 weeks from the time that your loan is made. Okay, so it's going to be different for everyone, and you need to keep track of those 8 weeks. That's important. Loan forgiveness can't exceed the principal amount of the loan. Covered rent is rent for your business operations under a lease that was already in effect on February 15, 2020. So not any lease payments for a new lease that was entered into after that date. A covered utility is payment for any of these types of utility services: gas, electricity, water, transportation, telephone, and internet. And it's for services that were already in effect on February 15 of 2020. Eligible recipient is anyone who gets a covered loan, and the expected forgiveness amount is determined by the lender, and that's the amount that the lender expects you to spend during the covered period for payroll costs, interest on the covered mortgage, interest on the covered rent, and interest on the covered utilities. So as I said, you must apply for this separately from the loan. It's not automatic. It might be possible that you can separately apply for the forgiveness at the time you apply for your loan. However, it's not really reasonable because you have to submit all of this documentation, which is not likely to exist at the time that you apply for the loan because you're using the loan proceeds. Once you apply for the forgiveness, your lender has 60 days to get back with you with an answer. Any part of the debt or loan that is forgiven is not going to count against your company as forgiveness of debt. So it's not going to add in as additional income on your 2020 tax return. You need to submit an application to the lender. By that time, they should have documents for you to complete. And the information you're going to give is information on your loan, the outstanding balance on your loan, when your loan was made, what the company address is, and the name of the borrower on the loan. You're going to verify the number of full-time equivalent employees that were on your payroll and their pay rates for each of them for these periods. And these periods are going to be different depending upon what category your business is in. So you'll know once I go through these and then we go through the other provisions, you'll know if you are a brand new business, then your period of time is January to February of 2020. If your business was already in effect and operating and going when you applied for this loan, then your period of time is going to be longer. So you're going to certify the number of employees full-time and their pay rates for the 8 weeks from the time of the loan. So what you paid and how many of them were and how much they were paid during the covered period, which is the 8 weeks from when you got the loan, number one. And then what the number of full-time employees were and their pay rates for the period of time from February 15 of 2019 to June 30th, 2019, which is the comparable period. Monthly, January 1 of 2020 to February 29 of 2020 for new businesses that weren't in. That's going to be on the application, and then this documentation is also going to have to be submitted by you to support the information that you provide. IRS payroll tax filings. So you're going to have to make sure you make your tax filings current and provide evidence of that with the forgiveness request. Also, state income withholding, payroll tax, unemployment insurance filings. So we want to keep everybody, get the money going back to the government, who's then going to be reimbursing on these loans. And then the last thing, also canceled checks, payment receipts, transcripts of accounts, or other verification to show utility payments actually made, covered mortgage payments actually made, and covered rent payments actually made. And then an authorized eligible representative of the company has to certify, this will probably be by declaration or penalty of perjury or notarized. Those are different alternatives of the same thing, but there's a person in your company who's going to have to verify that the documentation submitted is true and correct, that the amount requested for forgiveness they're showing that you paid, that you are showing that you paid, that you used those sums to retain employees, to make interest payments on covered mortgages, to make payments on covered rents, to make payments on covered utilities. And then if the SBA comes out with any additional documents as this goes along that they're going to require in addition, then you will have to comply with those other requirements. So between now and when you might apply for forgiveness, make sure you understand if there's anything additional that they're asking you to provide. Now, to be clear, the average number of full-time equivalent employee is the average number of full-time equivalent employees for each pay period within a month. There are two different ways for the loan forgiveness amount to be reduced. So you submit that application, and then one is going to be the amounts of salaries and wages paid, and the other one's going to go by the number of employees. So you're going to have to make this calculation, and you're going to take the payroll costs, the mortgage, interest, the rents, and the utilities that were paid that are included on the application, and you're going to multiply that by a percentage of change. And the percentage of change is going to be different whether you're a brand new business or an existing business or seasonal. So if you are an existing business that was in existence on February 15 of 2020, then you're going to take the average number of the full-time equivalent employees per month that were employed during your covered period, which is your 8 weeks, and you're going to divide that by the average full-time equivalent employees per month that you had employed by you last year for the period from February 15 of 2019 to June 30th of 2019. So you divide that, and then you multiply it by the total amount of payroll costs, utilities, rent, and mortgage that you paid during the 8 weeks from when you got your loan. That's for the existing companies. If you are a brand new company, you weren't in business last year, then you're going to take the average number of full-time equivalent employees that you had during the covered period, which is the 8 weeks since you got the loan, and you're going to divide that by the average number of full-time equivalent employees that you had for the period per month for the period from January 1, 2020 to February 29, 2020. So it's an average number per month. If you have the same, then it's going to be 1. And then you multiply that by your total of salaries, wages, payroll costs, mortgage, utilities, and rent. If you are a seasonal employer, again, you take all of those costs and then you multiply it by the percentage that is achieved by the average number of full-time equivalent employees per month that you employed during the 8 weeks from when you got the loan. You divide that by the average full-time equivalent employees per month that you had February 15 of 2019 to June 30 of 2019. The other way that there can be a reduction in the amount of loan forgiveness that is extended to you is based upon salaries and wages. So they don't want you to get this loan and not hire people, and they don't want you to get this loan and not pay people what they were being paid before, subject to the $100,000 ceiling. In both of these calculations or evaluations, there is an ability for the lender to make waivers for de minimis or very small changes or differences. So they're trying not to be too picky, but you do have to support all of this information with the documents. Now, the reduction in the amounts of wages that I'm going to talk about now does not apply to who made more than $100,000 and was cut back in order for you to comply with all of the different rules. So their reduction in salary does not count. It's everyone who is $100,000 and below is who you count for these calculations. If any salary and wages of any employee were reduced more than 25% during the most recent full quarter during which the employee was employed by you before you got the loan, now as compared to then. So if there is a reduction in that period that I just specified of 25% or more that they experience now compared to before, then that is going to be an amount that will be included as what is not likely to be forgiven. Other than that, the amount of forgiveness to be determined is supposed to be without regard to reduction in the number of full-time employees or the reduction in amount of salary of one or more employees for the time frame from February 15 of 2020 to 30 days from the date of the act, which is April 26, 2020. From February 15, 2020 to April 26, 2020, there is a reduction in the equivalent full-time employees, and not later than June 30 of 2020, you have eliminated that reduction. So if there is a reduction, but then you cure it by bringing people back in by June 30th, then it's not going to count against you. So there is benefit to not jumping the gun too early to apply for the forgiveness, to see how things are going to pan out for you, and to keep in mind these guidelines so that they help guide you in the decisions that you make, particularly in regard to your workforce. Additional forgiveness element, which I think is really beneficial, those employers who have tipped employees, tipped workers who receive tips in addition to what they are paid, you as the employer can be additionally forgiven part of this loan for any amounts that you pay to those tipped workers. So if you're bringing tipped workers back, you're reopening your restaurant, people have been off work for a while, and you are paying them additional amounts, that is going to count into what you are forgiven as part of the loan. So it's to incentivize those employers who have tipped workers. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Share this with someone who may benefit. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. And like I said, if I can get back to these, I'll do another video on some of those questions. Check out the SBA.gov website. Check out our other 2 videos on the eligibility and then how the loan program works. Get to your lenders when you can. You can't get any of these loans before April 3rd, and while financial services is exempt from the quarantines, they just got this law, Monday. So today I'm filming this on Tuesday. So be patient. They're probably not going to be immediately ready, and they have to work through all of their systems and get the documents ready, and they're working on reduced staff. So let's all be patient. But this is something that we can all be working on as we're waiting to gear up and get back to work, and maybe help us all feel a little bit better as we're going through this. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to see the other videos, and I'll see you next time.